A very good afternoon and welcome to this Q&A on cybercrime and cybersecurity and how to protect your business, most importantly. My name is Amy Lishman. I'm the Head of Member Engagement at Brighton Chamber, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour or so. These Q&As are brought to you with the support of Barclays Eagle Labs, and I'd like to invite Naomi Muston, who is the Ecosystem Manager at the Brighton Barclays Eagle Labs, to say a few words about how Eagle Labs can help you and businesses in Brighton. So over to you, Naomi.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Lovely to see you all this morning. This afternoon, shall I say? God, today has gone very quickly. As Amy mentioned, my name's Naomi. I'm the Ecosystem Manager of the Eagle Lab in Brighton. Here we support startups, established businesses and entrepreneurs to innovate and grow through emerging technologies. You don't need to bank with Barclays to be part of what we do, and everything outside of our co-working and office space is completely free. So we provide mentoring, programs, run events, as well as try to support with everything kind of Industry 4.0. So that could be right from AR to VR, right through to physical prototyping. Or you might just need some assistance with any element of your business or even banking. We do also have co-working and office space as well, and we're positioned very nicely at the corner of Preston Circus, right by the Joker, which does the best wings in town. So if you would like to get in touch with me, I'd be delighted to speak to you more about how Barclays Eagle Labs can support your business, or reach out to the Chamber team and they can make an introduction. Thanks and enjoy the session.
Thank you so much, Naomi. So brilliant. So I'm delighted to welcome Simon Smyth, who's Managing Director at Ingenio Technologies, to discuss this topic today. So we're going to be discussing cybercrime, cybersecurity, and how to protect your business. So let's get started. So big question for you, Simon. What is cybercrime and why does it happen?
So cybercrime it's not really that different to physical crime. So they're really, we refer to these people as bad actors, these guys that are kind of like trying to do stuff to your computer systems. But the days of a child, a teenager in a bedroom trying to do stuff with your computer, that just doesn't really exist anymore. And it can be boiled down to two types of bad actors, and that is organized crime and it's nation state. And so organized crime is just trying to find money, any way to try and extort some money, out of you. And then nation state is generally looking for some kind of intellectual property information, something that they can use, for leverage or counterfeiting or whatever that might be. And that's really how these things can be boiled down. And like I say, it's no different to physical security in that, many years ago, long time ago, we didn't really lock our doors. We may have had a lock. We might not even had it if you go back far enough. But, we started having locks, and now we've got 5-lever locks. We've got window locks, burglar alarms with motion sensors, dogs, CCTV, doorbell cameras, security lights, blah, 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 blah. And it can go on and on and on. And we have all these things for the physical stuff. And so we need to try and start looking at actually the kind of stuff we can put in to try and stop these bad actors trying to extort money. And that's the biggest thing for most businesses. It's the organized crime trying to they're performing automated attacks, trying to find out if there's anything of value. And there's generally, everyone has got something of value, but at that point, they don't know until they actually maybe get onto your machine. So most stuff is actually automated. So that's kind of why it exists, what it is.
Thank you, Simon. So it certainly struck me that, you have to really keep up with the latest trends. What are the threats kind of right now? So what are the biggest cybersecurity threats to businesses and individuals right now?
So the way that we look at it is that there's actually the biggest threat is actually humans. It's us as people. So we're the biggest threat. So the things that kind of come after that are normally outcomes of what we have managed to kind of let happen. And that could be that maybe we don't have the right tools in place to do things, but it could also be that we just aren't trained. We think we're trained. We think, that we're not going to get fooled by, we think everything is a Nigerian, prince looking for, to give you like £5 million. But actually there are emails out there that are handcrafted and look identical to, emails that you're expecting, and they come through at times when you're maybe expecting that email. So it's generally people that are the problem. And then from that, if something does get clicked and something gets onto your machine, or if you click something and you give someone your password to something, it's then does that allow them to execute something on your machine automated, or does it allow them to get credentials? And maybe, again, coming back to people, maybe we've been reusing passwords on other sites. And so someone gets your username and password from one site. Yeah, we'll try it on another site. Oh, look, we can get into that as well. Oh, look, we can get into your banking. We can get into these other things. So that's the biggest threats are people. Then what comes after that, differs in different ways, and it may be the biggest thing, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but is ransomware getting onto your machine and extorting you for money. These are the kind of problems.
Okay, fantastic. So moving on to that, so what is ransomware, and how does it and can it affect businesses?
So ransomware is most prevalent at the minute. So it's the biggest thing that you've clicked a link, something has managed to download onto your machine. And what ransomware does, it's malicious software that it searches for your files, and it will encrypt your files basically so you don't have access to them. So you can see that your folders are there, but you can't see the files, or they've got funny names and you just can't open them. And then what happens is, depending on the size of your business, is if you're connected to other machines on your network, which most networks are together, people are working together, files on a server or files maybe that you're sharing on between computers, they get encrypted as well. It just hops across the network, starts encrypting those files as well. And it's fast, it's really fast. If you've got a server, which is your centralized storage, or even Dropbox installed on machines, it will encrypt those files. If you're connected site to site, if you're part of a multi-site network, it can go across networks as well. Actual buildings, can get across. So it's very, very good. It's generally written really well, that it can just traverse across networks, get anywhere, lock your files down. And then at that point, you're going to get some kind of window presented on your screen saying that your files have been encrypted. If you want them back, then you have to pay a ransom normally in cryptocurrency, normally Bitcoin. So you then have to make a decision at that point as to what you do. So do you pay the ransom to get your files back? And there's no guarantee that you will do, although actually they're generally pretty good at giving you the key to get your files back. Or you have to restore from backup. And so you need to make sure you've got good backups, relevant backups that are up to date. And also you want to hope that the ransomware didn't actually encrypt your backups as well, because that's also a problem. So that's something we have to do, is we have to make sure that they are we call it being air-gapped, or just in a different place where actually there might be two sets of backups, one on site, but the one that's off-site can't be touched. So that's really important, because you've only got two choices of either restoring everything brand new, wipe your machines, restore all your data back, or you pay the ransom. And even if you do pay the ransom and get your files back, you also then have to understand, well, how did you get breached in the first place? Because you're now a target to be breached again. And that does happen. A second breach can happen. So it's quite serious. It affects all sizes of businesses. It comes from automated phishing emails, generally people clicking on things. So it can happen to absolutely anyone. It's only the big businesses that kind of get heard about. And one of the big ones recently, what was kind of kept hush hush, was One Call Insurance. And it's reported that, we don't know for a fact, that they paid millions of pounds to get the files back, because it would take longer to restore from backups than it would do just to decrypt with a key. So it's big business, and that's why they do it. There's money to be made.
Yeah. You mentioned Dropbox earlier being on, if it was kind of on your server. One of the questions we had through in advance was, how secure is Dropbox, and are there any better alternatives? You were kind of insinuating kind of having that air gap between different things. Could you say a bit more about how secure Dropbox is and what you might do in that instance?
So really, there's not really much between Dropbox, Google Drive, Box, or OneDrive, and there are lots of others as well. In terms of the actual security, there's generally not much between them, so they're pretty good. If your files get corrupted, any of these major tools will allow you to restore back to a previous version. So there will be ways that will be kind of, because they keep previous versions of files. So there's ways of being able to restore back. What we would say is that we always recommend anyone who has something like that to have a backup of your files as well. There's nothing to say. I mean, it's highly unlikely that Dropbox are going to go bankrupt. It's not to say that there isn't something happens, they get hacked, files get corrupted at their level and then on your PC and you don't have access to them. So we always say, make sure you've got another backup.
Sure. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Simon. So moving on now to antivirus software. It's been around a long time. How effective is it? And can you maybe talk a little bit about not just on desktops and PCs, because, you know, we're all walking around with these. So yeah, how do we protect our devices, whatever they are?
Yeah, so one of the things when we talk about security to people, because it's such a dry subject, you know, and nobody wants to talk about it, but you have to. It's like insurance, that it's something you have to address. The first thing that people say to me is, it's like, well, I've got antivirus, I'm protected. And unfortunately, these days, antivirus is just a small part of the puzzle. So many years ago, antivirus was all you needed. It just protected you from the internet. It would block things. It wasn't 100%. Nothing is 100%, but it did a good job. So that was okay. But now, as I say, it's just a small part of the puzzle. And a lot of it actually is around sort of like user training. So, you know, making sure that we know how to spot emails that are, or links. So that some of these emails are perfectly crafted, so you're not going to spot them. There'll be no spelling mistakes, no grammar mistakes. So now you're kind of like, well, I wasn't expecting that, so I'm just going to maybe inspect it. And it's looking at these things as well. But there are lots of other things. So, you know, passwords being reused is a big problem. So actually using a password manager so that you have a different password for every site. That way, then that controls that. So you're limiting if a password does get stolen, that they won't be able to log into lots of other sites. The next generation of antivirus is better because, and it's called, there's lots of acronyms in IT, so I'm going to try and keep them to a minimum, but it's called EDR, which is Endpoint Detect and Response. And that differs from antivirus because antivirus, basically, what it has is it has a big table of all the viruses that it knows about. It's like, okay, here's all the viruses. A virus comes in, it goes, oh, that's a match. So it will block it. The next gen AV, that's EDR, what it's doing is it's actually using behavioral analysis and using artificial intelligence in the background to look at your behaviors, look at the behaviors of the machine, what's happening on the machine, and then trying to decide actually if something different happens that, it's not like that, I'm just going to block it and we're going to raise that. And if that's paired with, and it's not that expensive, but if it's paired with a security operations center, then 24/7 they can just look at it and go, yeah, actually that's fine. I've looked at it. That's normal behavior. AI got it wrong, but it's actually pretty good, and it's pretty good at doing it. So that's kind of the next thing for an antivirus replacement. But the password managers and the big thing, and I'll probably mention this a couple more times, is two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. It's the one thing that everybody dreads, and they hate having to maybe get their phone out or their little fob with a number on it. But I've actually grown to love it. I used to hate it myself, and most people do, but actually I love it because every time that I use it, I know that someone else can't get into my account, well, not easily, because the way that multi-factor authentication works is it's something you know, that's your username and your password, and it's something you have. So if you're using, let's just take a consumer thing like Amazon. Amazon will send you a text of a code to be able to log in. So that means if someone is in another country somewhere and they've managed to get your username and password, if they try to log in, it's going to send you the multi-factor authentication code and they can't get in. So there are things around the edges. There are all these other things that you need to do. So antivirus, it's still relevant, but it is kind of quickly being superseded. And these other elements are what you need around the edges.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. On the EDR kind of the packages, are they, if they're relatively new, are they costly? Are they, you know, or is it something that small businesses can easily and readily afford?
They're normally, if you have it, so EDR itself really doesn't cost that much more than regular antivirus at the moment. But there's really not much difference. If you pair that with a SOC, a security operations center, that's kind of then looking at behind that, that adds a little bit more extra onto that. But again, it's not that expensive in the big scheme of things, because what it can do, the particular one that we use is actually comes with a ransomware insurance, and they will pay out if you get ransomware, because they're so confident that their product will stop it. In the way that it allows you to roll back, and can see these, when they see changes happening, they stop it and roll it back. So there are lots of really good tools out there that will do that, but that paired with a security operations center that could be, if you pay out 20 grand because you had your files hacked, paying £6-7 a month suddenly looks like it's really cheap. And that's the thing, it's really only when it happens you go, oh. The other thing you asked about was mobiles. Mobiles are generally quite safe because you're only generally installing apps from the iPhone App Store or the Google Play Store. And so those apps are generally vetted by Apple or Google. There has been cases where applications on both, and there's been one recently on the Google side where there has been applications have been uploaded with viruses in them. And if they do get onto your phone, then they'll be able to see your messages, your SMS messages, what you're logging into, key logging and stuff. So it's difficult. I think they can slow down mobiles a little bit. And the problem that there's a lot of budget mobiles. And so you start putting antivirus onto a mobile phone, a regular mobile phone, if it's not man enough, then it will just won't work. It'll just slow it right down. So you're looking for a faster, you're putting it on faster mobiles would be fine. So it's really difficult to say whether it's the right thing we should do at the minute. The risks are really low, and that's what we always need to look at, is what are the risks.
Thank you, Simon. Excellent. So moving on now to cyber essentials. So could you talk a bit about what is cyber essentials, and is it something that small businesses should consider, or large businesses?
So one of the first things you're supposed to do when you are looking at maybe what you should do, or you engage with security professionals or whatever, is actually, well, what's the risk? What is the risk to my business? There are lots of security tools out there. In the same way, you could have lots of physical security measures in place. If you have them all, you'll go bankrupt. So you have to look at the risk. If you're on a first floor office, well, maybe you don't need the same controls on windows and cameras outside maybe you would do if you're on the ground floor. So you need to look at what's the risk, identifying the risk. And what Cyber Essentials does is it's a government-backed scheme to kind of put in place the basics of security, and it asks you questions to really identify what are your risks. Now, you've got to say yes to all of these questions to pass it, but it then gives you a bit like an MOT. It gives you a really solid foundation of that your systems are secure and you're acting in a secure way. So that's really good. It does come with £25,000 worth of cyber insurance, which isn't as much if you go and get it separately. So there is some stuff with that. It also shows others. You're allowed to use the logo. You can put it on your letterheads. You can put it on your website. It also shows others that you're taking security seriously. And if you do get a breach, you have to report it to the Information Commissioner's office if you get breached. If you can then show, well, look, we've been doing security things, we've been doing Cyber Essentials, we've got our certificate, we've been doing these other security things here, then the ICO will be quite lenient and go like, okay, because that's not what they're after. They're after people who are just not interested in security, and looking after people's details or whatever that might be. So it shows that you're taking security seriously. That might help you win contracts because you can then show that to other people. So that's really important. And some government contracts insist that you have to have it. And then you can take it one stage further to Cybersecurity Plus, where a trained independent inspector will basically come, run some software, look at your network, and then if they think that actually, yeah, you've done everything you said you've done, then they'll give you a tick, and then you can say your Cyber Essentials Plus, which looks even better.
Brilliant, thank you, Simon. I will just add on the Cyber Essentials part. We're going through our renewal of that at the moment with you, and it's been invaluable for us because obviously our working life has changed. So making sure that we're secure from a home working and office working perspective has been really important. So certainly something to think about there, as we all are still working very differently, I think, to before. So
yeah, and probably will be as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. The detail obviously that it goes into as well is quite phenomenal. But very helpful in the long run. So I feel like my house is now Fort Knox when it comes to security, with you guys and my husband, who's obsessed with devices. We talked briefly, you mentioned cyber insurance in a couple of times there, and you've mentioned that Cyber Essentials will come with some element of that, but what about taking out separate cyber insurance? Is it worth it?
So the way that we look at it is we start with, the risk. When we're looking at anything, what's the risk? And then trying to decide how we then protect a network. And we're kind of going through, how do we find threats, and how do we recover if the worst happens? And so backups fall into that recover section, but cyber insurance also falls into that recover section. The answer is probably you should have it, but it really depends on the size of the business and what you do as to what it would take to recover. Cyber insurance will if something happens, you pick up the phone, and depending on the company, but the top three will then help you with incident recovery, potentially how you deal with your customers, with PR, what you need to do really to get everything back to the way it was, and and then should cover all those costs. So it really does depend on the size of the business. If it's a small business, then the £25,000 insurance that comes with Cyber Essentials is probably going to be enough. But actually, if the outcome is going to be a lot worse because it's a bigger business, lots of PCs, lots of people, lots of recovery to do, then insurance is probably the way to go. And you just have to treat it the same as like public liability and all that kind of stuff that you just have to have. You just get it.
Sure.
I should also say, sorry, that it could be, it actually could be a requirement to do business with others as well. A lot of bigger businesses are now saying that they will not give you a contract unless you have cyber insurance.
Thank you for that. Brilliant. Well, the other questions that I had, I think we talked about Dropbox and phones and antivirus. So I've opened it up to everyone. If anybody's got any further questions for Simon, then please do send them to me on the chat function. Excellent. I've got one just come through now. So for a sole trader, the £500 cost of Cyber Essentials seem very prohibitive. Is there a way around this, or a cheaper alternative, or something that you think's on the horizon that could be kind of more affordable for the smaller business or sole trader?
Not really. It's probably the cheapest. So if you do it yourself, I think it's £360 to do the kind of self-service and do it. It depends on what you need. You can gather a lot of the questions and you can learn how to be cyber secure without going down Cyber Essentials. But it's really looking at that. Actually, is it going to bring more benefits? Who you're doing business with, is that a good thing to show that actually you have it as well? The biggest thing, that I always say is, as long as you are being cyber aware and you're maybe doing the right things, then that's enough. But it really depends on once you start getting a bit bigger, then you need to start looking at actually being able to prove it to other people. And also you want to make sure that there are no holes. So, sole trader, micro business, then it really does depend on maybe the vertical that you're in as well.
Thank you. On kind of, I guess, question around how often should you be looking at this as a business owner? So, you know, there are certain things and tasks that you might do you know, weekly, daily basis. You know, cybersecurity, it doesn't seem to me that it's just that thing, right, tick box, done, you know, let's not think about it for another year. How would you kind of encourage people or advise people to put it into their, you know, weekly, daily life? What do people need to do, Simon?
The way that we, you're absolutely right, because the way that we talk about this in our business when we're, you know, we've got everyone together and we're talking about it, is that we always remind each other that security is actually a journey and it's not a destination. So things are always changing. Now, they're not changing, pardon me, on a daily basis, but they are changing, you know, every 6 months, a year, 2 years, depending on what it is. So if you're not big enough that you're partnering with an IT company, then you're just going to have to probably spend a little bit of time just trying to keep up to date with what's going on, just even watching the news and watching what's going on. The most help I can give to the people who maybe don't have a partner who's helping them with this and telling them what's new, that kind of stuff, is to look onto the NCSC's website, so the National Security Crime Centre. This is the government's, you know, crime cyber arm, and they have got some really, really, really good information, and I can send that through to anyone who wants it, or you could just search for it. But they've got some really good simple PDFs on things that you can do, how often you should do them, and checking back with them is really good. You know, their job is to make sure that people are aware. So that's a really good place to get information from.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Yes, we will. We just had a question in there. Can we have that shared with us? So yeah, absolutely. We'll send that round in the follow-up email as well, just a link to the website and those helpful documents. Sometimes you just need a prompt, and just needs to be a recurring thing that you do and think about without getting too scared. I think yes.
I know.
Yeah. So we've had a comment come through about one of our businesses on the call had a customer the other day that insisted on them as a supplier having cyber insurance. So it's certainly is a request that comes through. Had another question come through. They've recently had a phishing email attack, but they haven't noticed any repercussions. They use Office 365 and saw everything on SharePoint and OneDrive. Is there any way to figure out whether the attackers have got hold of any documents, and if so, which ones?
There is, but it requires forensic tools really to start doing that. You have to start really delving into logs, really looking at what where they might have got onto, and that's part of that recover phase, looking at what's happened so you can understand the extent of a hack. And to put some context around that, if you're a large organization and you went to the NCSC, or you went to one of the huge kind of multi-billion-pound security companies and said, you know, I've got this hack that's happening, the first thing they do is nothing. They'll just put some software on there or hardware in, and they'll just see what's happening, because they need to know what the extent of that is. So without specialist software tools to try and understand the logs and understand where people where they've got to and what they've touched, it's quite difficult.
Thank you so much for that. Hopefully that's answered the question there. I've got a question, and it might seem like a really silly question, right? But I said there was no silly questions, so that's okay.
There's never any silly questions.
When you get those emails come through, because we've probably all had them where they're mimicking, you know, language from a team member, but we've clearly recognised that, you know, that they haven't come through. Is it just a case of deleting? Is it reporting it? Is it what do you do? And is there any, you know, is there any harm in actually receiving the email? You know, is something, yeah.
It's good to report it. You know, so to your IT partner, because they can look to see if maybe it's a targeted attack, and then to see if there's anything maybe that can be done to try and stop it, and look into that. Generally, in most cases, just deleting it is fine. You know, phishing is very automated and kind of very general, but it can be targeted sometimes. And then it's trying to maybe understand why that is. And maybe you just ended up on a list and that's why you're getting targeted, or there may be more information there. You know, maybe they're already on part of the network and they want the rest of it and you're trying to do something with it. So if you report it then to your IT provider, they can say, oh, look, we've had lots of reports from different people. Let's look at that and understand that. But we do get a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Well, I'm just going to give it a minute or so to see if we have any other questions come through, because I appreciate sometimes it takes a bit of time to percolate, especially when it comes to lots of this information. So we do still have a bit of time if anybody else has anything to share and ask any questions. But I'll just recap as well and say, yeah, we'll send a follow-up email with some further details. You know, I know Ingenio certainly send out, you know, lots of informative, there's lots of information as well about how to keep yourself secure and useful bits of information. So yeah, hopefully you can browse your site as well.
While we're waiting, I was just I had kind of just I just written a couple of notes down just to summarize some of the things that I said, because I know there's a lot of information and some of it's relevant and some of it's not. But the biggest things, just to kind of summarize, are that it's people are the biggest issue. So, you know, if it's just you, then some kind of security awareness training for yourself, or if you've got a team, you know, giving them security awareness training, and actually signing up to something where you can get a phishing simulation. So we do phishing simulation internally, and there's 14 of us in the business, and we do it for some of our customers. And it comes with security training as well as the phishing simulation. And I have got no problem putting my hand up and saying that I have been caught by, you know, our tool. I've been caught twice. Both times that I got caught with it was because I was really busy and it was really coincidental. The most recent one was our chap who does all our procurement for us had gone, and it was after hours, and because I'm still there on my own working, I'm like, well, I'll do what? I'll just order that laptop. That'll just make sure that for our customer, and it's just done then, and then it'll come in. And there was a problem. Had gone through, chose DHL, and there was a problem with that. It came up, and at the same time, I had an email from DHL saying there was a problem with your delivery, and I just immediately clicked on it. I didn't think about it. I clicked on it, and it came up, you've been got, you know. And next day, George, who does all of the security stuff for that, he just give me a little, there you go, got you. But that's how it happens, because we're busy, you know, we're doing stuff, it just comes through at the right time. And the previous time I was doing a marketing thing and I was using Bitly, and as soon as I'd created my Bitly link, I had an email came through saying, oh, your Bitly links aren't working. I was like, oh, what's happened to that? And again, it was our phishing software, so it was perfectly formatted. Clicked it, I didn't look at the link to understand it. So that security awareness training to make you stop and slow down, and then the phishing simulation stuff is brilliant, because generally the phishing simulation means that once everyone is aware of that happens, no one wants to be the clicker. So they start looking at really dissecting the emails to make sure that they're not the one who gets caught in their office. But that means then that the business is secure. So that's kind of, you know, what's happened off it.
We've had a great question come through about kind of the training that you mentioned in staff training. Obviously, it can take many forms, but on, you know, how long would, you know, a good session with staff take? Who provides that? How? Yeah, what's the best way to go about it?
So we actually use a service to deliver short snippets, because if you, a bit like this, if you deliver an hour's worth of security training to people, they'll probably get about 20% of it.
Hopefully you'll get more, everyone, just saying, on this one. Yeah.
And it's sweet because there's so much information, you know, and because it's not we say it's a journey and it's not a destination, it's ongoing. We think that little snippets in chunks, a little bit at a time. So we actually, you know, for our customers, we offer this security training where it does 5-minute videos. They're kind of like a bit like The Office. They're kind of really, really high production value, so that you're not feeling cringy, but they tackle a subject every time. They're no more than 5 minutes, really, really good, really kind of engaging, you know, and actually the people in the offices, they talk about it, you know. That's better. Once a month, particular subject, once a month is much better than just doing a 2-hour session and then in a month's time, people have forgotten most of what was said or bits and pieces of it. So that ongoing type of thing is generally what's better.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We'll hopefully can share some of that as well in the follow-up email as well.
One of the other things I actually wanted to say was actually make sure that you patch your computers. So if you're not big enough where you've got someone actually doing that for you, that's if you do click on something, it's unpatched computers that are a big problem. So just something to take away that whether it's Mac or whether it's Windows, make sure they're fully patched.
What does patched mean?
So patching is so where you have let's take Windows 10. You've got your operating system that you're doing all your writing your documents on, you know, you're doing your banking on. Like all software, there are updates that come out, and generally those updates are going to patch a hole that's been discovered in the software that if an attacker did get onto, if you click something and a software does get downloaded, it can take advantage of that hole. So where Windows will do regular patching once a month, you just want to make sure that that is set up, that automated is set up. If you have a provider, they should be doing that already. They'll do all of your machines, but you know, if you're a small business, just make sure that the automation for setting it up is done. It's 2 minutes to do, and it could protect you.
Thank you, Simon. See, I told you I'd probably be asking more of the silly questions. We've had a question come through about that this person encourages their team to send phishing emails to report@phishing.gov.uk. Is this a good thing to do?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to do. You won't. That helps the pardon me, the NCSC build up a picture of what's going on. You know, in the UK. You're not going to get anything come back to you directly about that. They're not going to help you, you know, with it around that. But it's a good thing to do. Yeah.
Okay. Going back a little bit to what we were talking about before with Dropbox. So this person knows a cybersecurity consultant from the banking world who suggested Dropbox may not be secure enough depending on what data you're storing in the cloud. Yeah, is there anything more secure? I guess if you've got, I guess.
Well, so in 2012, Dropbox had a huge breach, and since then, you know, they have put in loads of controls, loads of security. You know, your files are encrypted when they're on your PC. They're encrypted on their way to Dropbox. They're encrypted when they sit at Dropbox. They use quite high encryption. It's difficult to say if you've got really, really sensitive material, then you need to look at that and decide actually if that sits on the online at all. Because all the big players are all much the same. They're using similar types of encryption technology. Again, the biggest breaches for Dropbox is users reusing passwords, not using two-factor authentication, and then that's allowing someone to get in with a username and password they found somewhere else. So you need to look at the risk. You need to identify what is the risk. If these, you know, if it's really highly classified, you don't want them online anywhere. You want to have them somewhere, you know, that's safe, effectively.
Yeah. I think you know, from experience as well, that companies have a lot of data, and I think the exercise of, you know, going through GDPR, sorry I said it, you know, a few years ago, and kind of getting ready for that, you realize that there's a lot of, you know, data, files, things you store, and you think you question why are you actually storing it as well. So it's really looking at that as a whole.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Actually storing and why. Final question, I think, coming through. What are the big companies, who are the big companies producing the kind of the newer antivirus software? Is there any kind of good ones that are coming through that you recommend?
There are generally any of the big names that you know of they are transitioning to these other products. The one that we have chosen, where we've done our due diligence, because they have this ransomware guarantee and will actually pay out if you get it, is SentinelOne. It's a great product. You can just go and get that direct. We pair that up with a SOC, because the SOC is 24/7. They're, you know, the highly skilled security engineers that actually will look at events as they happen, you know, at the weekend and stuff, and that they're better placed than we are to do that, because that's what they do all day long. So those two things paired together. But SentinelOne on its own is a great product, but there are others out there, you know, your kind of McAfee's and all this kind of the other products. They've all got versions of EDR. But that's just what we choose.
Brilliant. Thank you for that insight there, Simon. I haven't had anything else come through apart from, and I guess you might be able to cover this in the follow-up email when you talk about the software and training for phishing. It's just the prices of that as well, and how much, you know, the packages cost. So you can either say that now, Simon, or we can send that through if you don't have the figures to hand.
So when we're doing this, we're doing it for £5 per user per month. That's the price that we do that at. You'll find that that's pretty much the same price no matter where you go to. It's a highly competitive market, so that's kind of what it is. And just by the way, make sure you do MFA. I know I've said this before, but that's the one thing I just want to leave as my last thought to everyone is use MFA. Embrace the code. It's fine. It'll save you.
I think my husband will also thank me for that as well, with not having access to his Amazon account. So there we go. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Simon, and thanks to everyone for sending those questions through. And a very big thank you to Barclays Eagle Labs for sponsoring today's event. So it's going to be a reasonably long follow-up email, so do expect that probably later today or early tomorrow. Yes, good luck with your security journey. For those of you who are new to Brighton Chamber, just a very brief introduction to who we are and what we do. We're a non-profit organisation. We're an independent membership organisation with the aim of supporting and helping those running businesses, charities or social enterprises in Brighton. We're here to help businesses connect and learn and grow. So if you found today's session useful, then please do check out more events that we run and what we're up to at the moment. We've got a wide variety of in-person and online events to choose from, and we have a Q&A coming up next week as well, and that's on a new peer support programme that's running in Brighton and Hove, and it's a fully funded programme of peer network support. So do come along and find out a bit more about that and see if you're eligible. That's on Friday the 15th of October, and there'll be plenty more of these Q&As as the months go on towards the end of the year as well. Do keep in touch with us. We've got a great mailing list, so do sign up to get updates about what's coming up, and hopefully we'll see you along at one of those very soon. So I just wish you to have a great rest of the day, sunny Wednesday, and we'll see you all soon.